To get started on this exercise, let's create a new document from scratch. So once you launch Animate, choose Create New. And let's create a new document that's the standard HD size. So this will give us a width of 1280 and a height of 720 with a frame rate of 24 frames per second. And let's keep our platform type at ActionScript 3. We'll say Create, and this will give us our new document. Let's zoom out by going up to the very top, and we'll show all, and this will show everything that we have on our frame. Now the first thing we're going to do is to draw off a simple little pendulum that we can swing back and forth. So going down to our timeline, let's rename layer 1 as our pendulum layer, and we'll work on our first frame. Let's go over to our toolbox and choose the line tool. Then with the line tool selected, let's go over to our properties panel and look at the tool properties. First, let's turn on the object drawing mode for the line. This means it'll be highlighted, and when we click and drag a line, you can see it'll give us a blue box whenever we select it. That's what we want to be able to see. With that turned on, we'll change our stroke color to something that's not black but not too light of a gray. So I'm going to choose one of these darker grays as my stroke color. As far as the size goes, anywhere between 10 and 20 pixels should be okay. So I'm just going to keep mine around 15 for now. We do want to change up the style of our line. Now by default, the style has always been this solid filled-in line that we're used to working with. But there are a lot of different other artistic styles you can choose from. If you choose any one of these, when you click and drag, it'll give you a preview of what it looks like. In this case, you can see it's little speckled dots that automatically fill in with each thing. There are more styles that you can choose from. If you click on the little style options, the little 3 dots off to the side, you can open up your brush library, and these are a variety of different predefined and pre-saved brushes and line styles within your Adobe Animate software. For instance, there's a variety of arrows you can choose from. There's some artistic ones that give you a little bit more artistic type brush strokes. These come in handy if you're trying to give a more artistic flair to any artwork that you're creating. There are some decorative things like banners and curls and slides. What we want to do is a pattern brush. With pattern brush selected, let's select the borders and let's double click on the dashed circle. So patterns, borders, double click on dashed circles to select it. With that selected, this will give us kind of a chain looking type line, and that's what we want to work on for this particular project. So once you test it out, I'm going to delete away the ones that I have. Again, grab our line tool. We can click and drag from the center point going all the way down almost to just past the midpoint. We want to give us a little bit of room to draw off a circle there in the middle. Now at this time, if you want to change the size of it, you can simply select your line and then go over to the properties of the object and change out the stroke size. This will make it larger. Notice that when you make it larger, it's going to make it wider, and you're actually going to get fewer links in between. So it's going to try to fill it in as best as possible between those. But around, like I said, 10 to 20 pixels should be okay for what we're trying to do. Now let's draw off a little ball down here at the center. To do that, I'm going to go to my oval tool. With the oval tool selected, we'll go over to our properties panel. We do want to turn on object drawing mode, and let's set our fill color for now to be just a simple medium gray as well. We do want to give it a stroke, and we'll set my stroke to be just a solid black, and we'll set our stroke size to be about 10. Now keep in mind, it remembered the same style that we had before, and we don't want to have that repeating chain link for this one. So for this one, I'm going to set this back to just be a solid line. With that done, I can click and drag and draw off the size of my little pendulum at the very end. Now I'm holding down Shift when you click and drag to give me a perfect circle, and when I let go, there it is. I can now select it and move it into place, and I want to be able to put this right in the center of where my line is. To make sure it's nice and centered up, with your black arrow selection tool, select both the circle and hold down Shift and click on the line, and you'll have both of those selected. Then you can go over to your Align panel. If you open up Align, choose Align Horizontal, And this will align everything nice and center onto the stage. Now I do want to change up the fill color for this. So I'm going to click once on my little pendulum ball at the bottom. Going back over to my Properties panel, under the Object Properties, let's choose Fill. Let's go down and choose the Radial Gradient at the very bottom. This will give you a gradation going from the midpoint outward, and it looks like a three-dimensional ball. Now if you want to be able to edit this gradient, there's a couple of things we can do. With it selected, we need to open up the Gradient Editor. Now I don't see it listed right on our toolbox, but if we go down to the very bottom of our toolbox, we can open up the Toolbox Editor, and this is the tool that we're looking for. So I'm going to click and drag it into my toolbox so I can use it. With it selected, we'll click on it. Whoops. And you also have your ball selected. That looks better. You can see now it gives you some options to be able to move it around or to rotate and distort the gradient itself. So if I don't want it to be in the center, I can click on this and I can drag around the center and starting point for my gradient. So let's have it go off to the upper left-hand corner. Then I can click on the edge and I can either distort it this way, or I can click on the circle edge and I can make it larger. Let's have it go all the way to the very edge of my ball for that way. So offsetting it just a bit will give it a little bit more realistic look to its shadow that's being placed. Now if you want to change the color of your gradient, with your black arrow selection tool, if you'll double click and go into isolation mode, this will allow you to select the fill color itself. With that fill color selected, open up your color panel and click on the little paint bucket at the top. This will activate the fill color, and you can see you've got a gradient down here at the bottom. So instead of it going from white to black, let's change it to be a different color. I'm going to select this first color, double click on it to open up the color picker, and this will allow me to pick out any other color that I want. As long as it's light, it'll be okay. So I'm going to do this light blue to change the color of this. Now since it's going from light blue to black, I want it to go from a light blue to maybe a darker blue. That will look a little bit better. So I'm going to double click on my black swatch. Let's choose one of these darker blues off to the side. Say this one right here. With that done, you can click away to deselect it to get an idea of what it looks like. You can do the same thing for your stroke as well. If you carefully click on the outline of it, you can then go up to your color panel and select the outline or the pencil at the top, and this will allow you to change up whatever color that you want. If you want, you can click on there and you can choose the same black color or dark blue color that you used before, and this will set it up for this one. You can then return to scene 1 at the very top to continue editing your design. The last thing I want to do is, if you want to, change the size of your little ball to make it better fit your pendulum. So I'm going to choose my free transform tool, hold down shift as you click on the edge to make it a little bit smaller so that it's about this size and you're ready to go. Now we need to turn this into a symbol that we can animate. So with your black arrow selection tool, let's go back to the center, click and drag and select everything that's on the screen. Let's go up to Modify and Convert to Symbol. We're going to call this our pendulum. Do make sure that it's a graphic and set your registration for now to be in the center. We'll say OK to this. Now here's the magic trick to making the pendulum swing in a natural movement. If we were to choose our free transform tool and do a rotation of this, you can see it's by default always going to rotate by the center, and that's not necessarily what we want to do. We want to have it rotating from this top middle point, or really from whatever point that we deem necessary for our objects. To change this up, if you look very carefully at the center of our symbol, you'll see this little round dot. This marks the central rotation point for whatever object that you have. And you can move this around. Carefully click on that central point and drag it, and we're going to drag it up to the very top center of our design. So drag it up to right here. It doesn't have to be inside the bounding box. You can have this central point anywhere on your design, But with that set, the next time you go to rotate it, you can see it's going to rotate from that particular point. And that's going to be key and vital to making this pendulum look correct. Now let's set up our keyframes to have it swinging back and forth. Since we're already on keyframe number 1, let's click on the bottom edge to rotate it. And if you hold down your Shift key, you can see that this will move in 45-degree increments. So holding Shift, let's go 45 degrees this way. We can let go. That will set up our pendulum at the starting position. Then go down to your timeline and choose the 48th keyframe. This is right at the 2-second mark. Let's insert another keyframe, F6, and then holding down Shift, we're going to drag it 45 degrees the other way. And so it will stop at this particular point. Then it's a simple matter of tweening in between both of those. So select the first keyframe, we'll right click, let's do a classic tween. You can see it'll move from there to there. Now if we test this, you can see it's going to be moving in a very straightforward robotic style and fashion. What we really want to do is to have it slow in and slow out. So let's add some motion tween to this. Going back to our first frame, we'll go over to our frame properties. Under the tweening, let's set the effect from classic ease to ease in and ease out. In my case, let's do something drastic like quart. Double click on quart. You can see it'll add that little bit of a mass to the swing as it stops from here. Now if it goes to there, let's have it return back in 2 seconds as well. So going down to our timeline, let's insert another keyframe right at the 4-second mark. And with this one, we're going to hold down Shift as you click on the outer edge and drag it back to its original starting position. And as we did before, let's choose our second keyframe. We'll create a classic tween between both of those. And with that frame selected, we'll go over to our Properties panel and set the easing to be ease in and out. And we'll do a quart ease in and out for that one too. Double click on quart, and this will allow it to return back to its original position. Now if we go up to Control and test our movie, this will give it moving in a very natural manner. With all this done, we can go up to File and Save, and let's make sure to add your name to this. So we'll add Ivy, and we'll call it Pendulum. Make sure to save it as an animate file format, and that's what you'll upload to Moodle for this exercise grade.